The sliding entrance of Harmony Medical Center burst apart as Alexander Hale barreled inside. Water poured from his custom-tailored attire, his typical polished demeanor utterly destroyed. Lightning boomed above as if the heavens themselves were fracturing. "Where is she?" His shout reverberated across the urgent care area, halting attendants in their tracks. "Sophia Bennett, where's my spouse?" A novice attendant advanced, her uniform marred by stains from the evening's turmoil. "Sir, calm down. She's in distress. We require that transfusion immediately." Dr. Ellis's command sliced the atmosphere as she hurried around the bend, her lab coat fluttering in her wake. "Mr. Hale, you're a miracle. We've got mere moments, not much longer." The alert that appends existence often strikes at the most unforeseen instant. For Alexander Hale, magnate leader of Hale Corporation, it arrived at 11:47 p.m. amid the fiercest tempest the metropolis had endured in years. He'd been perched in his expansive suite, separation documents strewn over his workspace like a chart of his shortcomings, when an unfamiliar contact illuminated his device. Now, he trailed Dr. Ellis along passages reeking of antiseptics and urgency. His high-end footwear squealed on the tile floors. Every stride marked a timer toward redemption or ruin. Have you ever forfeited a loved one due to your inability to recognize true value? Have you ever erected a fortress of riches while your genuine riches escaped your grasp like grains? Greetings once more to Ms. Aria Montgomery Narratives, where this episode will seize your emotions and hold tight. If this is your initial visit, tap that follow icon. Believe me, you won't regret staying tuned for the revelations ahead. When achievement turns into fixation, affection turns into collateral damage. Alexander Hale grasped this truth painfully when his partner of 3 years departed, insisting she could no longer rival his primary devotion, his firm. He'd released her, overly arrogant to resist, too absorbed in his upcoming consolidation to perceive his realm disintegrating. "Oh, negative type," Dr. Ellis explained while they sped by chambers brimming with strangers' misfortunes. "You're her sole compatible donor available this evening. The supply depot is depleted. A major collision on the expressway caused numerous injuries, and then she arrived." "Expecting," Alexander murmured, the term alien to his lips. "Carrying twins." "Your twins, Mr. Hale. But what unfolds when fate offers a final opportunity to correct your errors? What occurs when destiny orchestrates to reveal precisely what you've discarded? This evening you'll witness it. For occasionally, the most profound romance tales revolve not around origins, but around the renewal that nearly evaded grasp. 5 years prior, Alexander Hale had entered a modest cafe on Fifth Avenue bearing the assurance of someone who commanded much of the urban landscape. At 28, he'd amassed his initial $100 million, fully persuaded that wealth resolved every dilemma. Triple espresso shot, foam-free, precisely 180 degrees, in a proper mug, not disposable, he'd snapped at the fair-haired server without glancing from his screen. "Impressive." The tone brimmed with humor. "That's the snobbiest request I've encountered this shift. And the rivals are intense." Alexander's gaze jerked upward, set to summon the supervisor, but the retort evaporated. Emerald eyes gleamed with playfulness over the surface, matched by a grin implying she viewed him as amusing rather than awe-inspiring. "Sophia," her badge indicated. She bent nearer, arms on the edge. "Enlighten me. Does issuing coffee commands like a military leader truly enhance the flavor, or is this merely how affluent gentlemen display authority?" No one addressed Alexander Hale so boldly. Absolutely no one. Yet, rather than fury, he sensed an internal shift, akin to geological layers shifting after prolonged inertia. "Perhaps I ought to experiment with an alternative," he found himself replying. "Groundbreaking idea. she beamed. Allow me to prepare what I believe suits you, rather than your assumption of necessity. That initial brew, an unpretentious cappuccino adorned with a foam heart, altered his trajectory entirely. Alexander returned each dawn, not for the jolt, but for the woman who regarded him as mortal rather than a fortune. In half a year, they were entwined. Sophia served as his stabilizer amid realms of aggressive buyouts and ruthless dealings. She'd perch legs folded on his workspace rug at midnight, remnants of Asian delivery containers dispersed nearby, absorbing his descriptions of Hale Corporation's aspirations. You'll reshape the globe, she'd affirm, her belief in him unwavering. We'll reshape it jointly, he'd vow, drawing her near. The nuptials transpired in a flurry, a compact rite Sophia orchestrated while Alexander sealed a $50 million pact from the ceremony via messages. She'd chuckled then, dubbing him her charming overworker, but in retrospect, the warnings had emerged. The initial year vanished in buyout sessions and global outreach. Sophia outfitted their lofty residence solo, dined solo, dozed solo, as Alexander constructed his dominion one agreement at a time. Joyful milestone, she'd breathed into his absent recording when he skipped their debut one for a summit in Paris. I'll preserve some pastry for you. The second year amassed unfulfilled vows like outstanding invoices. The getaway to Italy aborted for a vital council assembly. Her natal feast disrupted by an issue in the Berlin branch. The choreography sessions they'd arranged overlooked under fiscal forecasts. No issue, Sophia would insist, her grin hardening with each letdown. I comprehend. The enterprise requires you. By the third year, she'd ceased claiming it was fine. She'd ceased uttering much at all. The evening she exited replayed in Alexander's recollection with excruciating detail. He'd returned at 2 a.m. to discover her seated in the shadowed parlor, paired luggage at her feet. Another extended evening. Her tone was vacant, stripped of the glow that once infused their space. The Berlin expansion demanded. It doesn't concern me. The phrases emerged gentle yet conclusive. I genuinely, utterly don't care any longer, Alexander. And that's my signal it's concluded. Sophia, I beg you. I'm pursuing this for our sake. For our prospects. We lack prospects. She rose, and in the urban glow filtering via the panes, he observed moisture tracing her face. You possess prospects with Hale Corporation. I'm merely the lady who occupies your resting place occasionally. When you recall to return. That's unjust. You were aware of my nature upon wedding me. I wed a gentleman who lingered through nights discoursing on transforming the planet via innovation and empathy. I wed an individual who swayed with me in this galley and vowed we'd construct an existence jointly. Her timbre fractured. I'm departing a foreigner who gauges affection in equity stakes and timetabled quarter-hour dialogues amid sessions. Avoid theatrics. We can resolve this. I'll strive to return earlier. When she chuckled, it resembled shattering crystal. Slot me amid Paris and the fiscal audit. Timetable our union like yet another consolidation to oversee. The disparity struck him presently as he dashed via the facility, his suite all chrome and metal and chill precision contrasting the coziness of their nascent era when triumph signified her beam over dawn brew. If this narrative stirs your soul, press that approval icon. For we all occasionally require cues on true priorities prior to finality. This direction, Mr. Hale, Dr. Ellis prompted, yanking him to the now. Time scarce. Yet Alexander's thoughts dwelled on that final vision. Sophia striding from the threshold, extracting every illumination, abandoning him solitary in his flawlessly thriving, flawlessly vacant existence. The alert that demolished Alexander's reality commenced akin to countless predecessors. He'd been gazing at Sophia's inscription on the separation forms, following the curves of her moniker with his digit when the strange contact gleamed on his display. Alexander Hale. He'd responded instinctively, his executive timbre enduring despite the spirits. Mr. Hale, this is Dr. Laura Ellis, head of maternity at Harmony Medical Center. A hesitation that widened like a void. Regarding Sophia Bennett. You're recorded as her crisis liaison. Espouse. He'd amended, the terms bitter as cinders. Is she, what's the crisis? Mr. Hale heed me closely. Ms. Bennett entered this evening in progress delivery with grave issues. She's suffering placental detachment. The attachment has detached from the womb lining. Delivery. The vessel slipped from his grip, splintering over polished stone. She's expecting twins, Mr. Hale. 34 weeks presently. She's bleeding profusely. We've executed an urgent surgical birth, but she's forfeited a perilous volume of fluid. Our reserve is perilously scarce owing to a chain collision prior, and she possesses O-negative fluid. You're noted as identical without swift infusion. I'm en route. He was in motion, seizing his overcoat. Instruct her to endure. Instruct her, no interval for notes, Mr. Hale. Simply arrive. The journey to Harmony Medical Center blurred into sheets of downpour on pains and recollections assaulting like fragments. Victor, his chauffeur, navigated bends at hazardous velocities while Alexander sat tense in the rear, his psyche outpacing the vehicle. Twins. She'd borne twins. His twins. 4 months, she'd been solitary nurturing their offspring while he'd been augmenting his holdings. The prior occasion they'd united, that ultimate dusk before her exit, replayed with fresh import. I'll eternally cherish you, she'd murmured against his torso. That's the harshest element. Had she discerned then? Had she intuited? Accelerate, Victor, he ordered, observing the gauge ascend. Sir, the paths are treacherous. My offspring are arriving and their parent is fading. The declaration tore from his core. Proceed swifter. Each stoplight seemed a deliberate assault. Each kilometer extended infinitely. His device vibrated with dispatches from executives on the forthcoming address, and he yearned to fling it outward. How many evenings had he favored those dispatches over his union? How often had he elevated earnings over the soul who'd adored him prior to his possessions? The facility emerged through the gale at last, its crisis portal shining like deliverance or judgment. He wasn't certain which. Alexander leaped from the auto prior to Victor's halt, sprinting through pools that drenched his premium hide footwear. Within, regulated frenzy prevailed. Dr. Ellis materialized like a paragon of order, in motion. This path, we've succeeded in birthing the infants securely. But Sophia, she propelled via paired portals. She's forfeited excessive fluid, her vitals plummeting swiftly. Via a pain, Alexander glimpsed her and his limbs nearly yielded. Sophia reclined motionless as demise on the procedure slab, her complexion pallid as parchment. Apparatus encircled her, displays exhibiting figures meaningless to him save their descent. Care providers advanced with honed haste, expression somber. She's resisting, but requires infusion now. Dr. Ellis directed him to a neighboring chamber where an attendant awaited with apparatus. We'll conduct a direct transfer, quicker than bagged processing. A youthful attendant, scarcely graduated by her look, aided him onto a stretcher. The infant's sire ought to learn they're secure, she noted to Dr. Ellis. Both newborns in the special care unit, yet respiring independently. The phrases struck Alexander like a tangible impact. Infant sire, not prior consort. Not ex-leader, sire. May I view her? He queried as the attendant probed for access. The pain, Dr. Ellis gestured, but remain immobile post-commencement. They aligned his stretcher for observation through the barrier. The puncture entered and promptly his essence surged via transparent lines, hastening to preserve the woman he'd neglected to treasure. How extended has she concealed the pregnancy from me? The inquiry slipped unbidden. That's beyond my purview, Dr. Ellis answered cautiously. What counts presently is your arrival. As his essence ebbed into the conduits, a reminiscence emerged vividly. A benevolence event 2 years past. He'd coordinated managerial essence contributions for favorable exposure, addressing all on communal obligation. I desire, Sophia had uttered softly, observing him expose his limb for the lenses. You'd grant me your duration like you grant your essence to benevolence, openly, abundantly, sans inspecting your device every half hour. He dismissed her remark then, overly intent on the image prospect to detect the entreaty underneath. Now, as his vital fluid coursed toward her waning form, the paradox wounded profoundly. She'd sought his duration, his company, his focus. Instead, she received his essence because he'd proffered naught else when vital. Her vitals steadying, a voice summoned from the procedure chamber. But Alexander scarcely registered. He was immersed in the epiphany that he was at last furnishing Sophia something essential, something solely he could furnish. Belated for their union. Perhaps belated for all, but not belated to preserve her existence. Not belated to guarantee their offspring retained a parent. Extracted entirely, he breathed to the attendant. All she requires, extracted all. The lounge area morphed into Alexander's limbo. Post-donating 2 units of essence, the utmost permitted, he'd been exiled to rigid polymer seats while Sophia battled for survival beyond sealed portals. The wall chronometer advanced with torturous leisure. 2:47 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 3:42 a.m. nearby. Other clans claimed their worry domains. An elder female wove with unsteady grips. A patriarch strode as his adolescence slumbered over triple seats. They all knew him. His visage had adorned sufficient periodicals, but sorrow leveled all. Here, his fortunes signified zilch. That's Alexander Hale, a murmur noted. The innovation tycoon. Fortune can't acquire all, another timbre responded without malice. Observe him. Merely another fearful individual, yearning a cherished one endures the dusk. The remark impacted fiercer than any aggressive buyout. They spoke truth. His vast domain, each coin in his vaults, every link in his contacts, none signified. He couldn't procure Sophia a fresh core if hers ceased. Couldn't barter additional duration if she depleted. Dr. Ellis materialized at 4:15 a.m. weariness carved into her every crease. She settled adjacent, and Alexander braced for calamity. She's secure momentarily. Dire yet secure. The infusion granted the duration required. Blessings. His timbre fractured on the terms. Mr. Hale, one detail merits your awareness. Dr. Ellis selected her phrasing meticulously. Sophia has been under my care through this gestation. She explicitly requested no outreach to you, yet she designated me as crisis liaison. Antiquated forms. She likely overlooked updating. Or perhaps the doctor appraised him. Perhaps a portion of her anticipated your presence if catastrophe struck. Relate the gestation. I beseech you, I require knowing your ordeals. Dr. Ellis exhaled. She discovered 2 weeks post-separation. Initial phase was arduous. Intense nausea while forging her fresh path. She secured employment at a bookshop, resided in a compact flat, never once griped, even when sustenance scarcely remained. Each term was a blade. His spouse, prior spouse, laboring in commerce while bearing his progeny, dwelling in some confined lodging while he slumbered in a lofty abode echoing vacancy. Subsequent phase yielded issues, elevated pressure, maternal sugar imbalance. She oversaw it all isolated, traversing 3 conveyances to consultation since she vended her vehicle. I proposed reaching you repeatedly. She invariably declined. What did she claim? Alexander had to discern. That you'd return from duty, not devotion, that you'd regard the progeny as another venture to direct, another buyout to administer. She desired, Dr. Ellis halted. She desired her offspring cherished for their essence, not their symbolism to your heritage. The verity pulverized an inner fragment. Alexander groped for his device, navigating to his counsel's collective dispatch. Those who'd persuaded him earnings surpassed attendance. That triumph gauged in market portions rather than mutual instance. Alexander Grant, his finance director, replied instantly despite the hour. Set to dominate tomorrow's address? I'm finished. The terms emerged amid unrestrained weeps. I'm withdrawing. Instant effect. What? Alex, you're incoherent. The Paris Accord. My progeny arrived this evening. Alexander's timbre splintered utterly. Twins. Grant, I possess twins and I was oblivious to their being because I was excessively occupied erecting a firm to observe I demolished my kin. I'm finished. You desire the leadership role? It's yours. Alex, avoid impulsive choices. Alexander terminated. The device clattered downward, and he concealed his visage in his palms, frame quaking with restrained sorrow. Son. A tender grasp contacted his limb. Alexander elevated to behold a custodian, likely in his 70s, proffering a tissue carton. Harsh evening. The gravest, the finest. I scarcely distinguish. The elder settled, his cleansing pail disregarded. Spouse and progeny, ex-spouse. She departed because I couldn't perceive beyond my drive. Now she might perish believing I never cherished her sufficiently. But you're present now. Belated. Permit me to impart, the custodian stated, his timbre laden with seasoned wisdom. I've maintained these corridors for 3 decades. Witnessed every variety pass through. Affluent, indigent, youthful, aged. What I've noted, never beheld anyone on demise's brink regretting excess office hours. The plain verity rendered Alexander mute. Presence now doesn't obliterate history, the elder proceeded. But it's an inception. Every path commences with a single stride, even delayed. What would you relinquish for renewal? Remark beneath and convey your reflections on life's true essence. The custodian patted Alexander's limb anew prior to resuming duties, abandoning the tycoon solitary with his laments and the emerging insight that maybe, merely maybe, it wasn't belated to evolve into the individual his kin required. At 5:30 a.m., Dr. Ellis located Alexander persisting in the lounge, fixated on his palms as if they contained solutions to unposed queries. Mr. Hale? Her timbre softened now. Sophia maintained stability. Care to encounter your progeny? The trek to the infant intensive unit resembled entering an alternate realm. Through fortified pain portals, beyond decontamination posts, and muted directives on protocols, Dr. Ellis guided him to pair diminutive enclosures aligned. Infant female Hale, the plaque on the left declared. Infant male Hale, on the right. Alexander neared gradually, as if abrupt motions might shatter the enchantment. Within the translucent enclosures, 2 inconceivably petite beings slumbered under heat lamps, their torsos ascending and descending with vitality's cadence. They're minuscule, he breathed. 34 weeks is premature, but they're resilient, robust respiration, solid responses, no severe issues, extraordinary considering this night's ordeal. The female bore faint strands of fair locks capturing the glow like woven thread. Sophia's tint, the identical hue that had cascaded over his cushion each dawn for 3 years. Her minuscule grip curled near her face, and even asleep, her visage bore a resolute look evoking her parents' tenacious trait. "She's been more restless than her sibling," an attendant noted softly. "Quite expressive regarding her views. Precisely like Sophia." Alexander discovered himself grinning amid unbidden moisture. The male was broader, shadowed-tressed, with grave brows that creased even in repose. His limbs, though tiny, bore elongated digits that would someday, Alexander comprehended abruptly, craft, erect, embrace a beloved. "He resembles your childhood images," Dr. Ellis remarked. Identical grave demeanor, as if plotting his debut enterprise. But as Alexander examined his son's serene countenance, he sensed a vehement guardianship unrelated to ventures or forthcoming feats. This progeny would never encounter the isolation of vacant lofty abodes or the vacant triumph of prosperous packs signifying naught. This lad would know his parents' company, his regard, his devotion quantified not in endowments, but in nocturnal tales and athletic outings and serene dialogues on existence. "What heritage signifies?" he uttered, flattening his palm against the enclosure's face. "It's not boardroom constructions. It's nurturing those to propagate your devotion onward." The female roused, petite orifice parting in potential yawn or objection. Her sibling adjusted responsively, and abruptly Alexander grasped a deep truth. These two had coexisted from inception, allies in Sophia's interior, comrades confronting this dubious realm. They would never isolate as he'd isolated in triumph. They safeguard one another. The attendant beamed. When one agitates, the other appears to perceive. Unprecedented sibling harmony. An abrupt uproar from the corridor disrupted the tranquil instant. Dr. Ellis's alert device erupted in frantic tones, and she advanced prior to cessation. "Sophia," she summoned over her form, already sprinting. "She's declining anew." Alexander's image gazed back from the enclosure's pane. A transformed individual beyond identification. Vanished was the refined leader who'd entered this facility hours prior. In his stead emerged someone unrefined, frantic, and ultimately cognizant of priorities. His premium garment creased, his immaculate mane tousled, his countenance etched by moisture he'd never permitted. But his gaze bore something unprecedented. Not the appraising shine of a profit-calculating soul, but the vehement devotion of a parent who would shift peaks to shield his kin. "Endure fiercely," he breathed to his slumbering progeny. "Father's arrived now, and I'm never departing anew." In the pain, his image affirmed, a vow tendered to the individual he'd ultimately embodied. Sophia's gaze fluttered open 12 hours subsequent, gradually sharpening on the clinical overhead panels above her recovery cot. For an instant, bewilderment veiled her traits. Then, recollection surged like a surge. Her palm instinctively traversed her vacant midsection. "The progeny," she breathed, her timbre raspy from the ventilation aid. "They're secure. They're flawless." Alexander's timbre emanated from the seat adjacent her cot where he'd upheld his watch. Shadowed rings underlined his gaze and bristles veiled his typically shaved mandible. A lad and a female. Sophia pivoted her skull leisurely, absorbing his unkempt form. When their gazes converged, hers conveyed no ardor, no solace at his sight, merely a chill fatigue that wounded him deeper than any counsel treachery. "You arrived," she stated tonelessly. "Naturally I arrived, Sophia, when they summoned. I omitted you from the crisis roster." Her timbre bore the depletion of one who'd combated demise and prevailed, scarcely. "I deliberately erased your entry." Outdated forms, Dr. Ellis mentioned. But I'm grateful it transpired. Deity, Sophia, I might have forfeited you. Might have forfeited all without ever discerning their being. She sealed her gaze, a lone droplet fleeing. That was intentional. Why? The term emerged fractured. Why conceal this from me? They're my progeny too. Because I precisely foresaw the outcome. Her gaze reopened, securing him with a glare encapsulating 3 years of amassed letdowns. You'd return, not from devotion, but duty. The Hale lineage required successors, and you'd direct our kin like another branch of your realm. That's inequitable, correct? Sophia labored to elevate, flinching. Enlighten me, Alexander, across those months post-departure, how often did you contact? How often did you appear at my lodging or the bookshop where I toiled advocating for us? The quiet expanded like an indictment. You were oblivious I toiled at a bookshop, she persisted, her timbre fortifying. Oblivious I vended our vehicle for gestation supplements. Oblivious I endured Yuletide dawn in crisis care with simulated contractions isolated while you likely consummated some pact in Paris. I was in Berlin, he conceded softly. The Lauron acquisition. Naturally you were. A acrid chuckle escaped. Do you comprehend discovering you're bearing twins when you scarcely sustain yourself? Your pressure surging because you're laboring dual shifts while nurturing dual progeny? Lying vigilant nightly pondering if you'll furnish them all deserved. Sophia, I would have dispatched funds. She culminated his notion. Penned a draft, engaged premier healers, procured vast cradles, established endowments. You direct the gestation like a commercial exchange. But you wouldn't attend the sessions where I first detected their pulses. Wouldn't sense their motions or assist selecting monikers or steadied my locks during prolonged nausea. Each term was a lancet, excising the delusions he directed on their bond. Alexander sensed his inadequacy's burden draping like a pall. The dusk I discerned, Sophia proceeded, her timbre gentler now, more exposed. I was 2 weeks gestating. Our ultimate dusk pre-separation finalization. Recall? He did. How could he overlook? They'd united with a fervor nearing ferocity, both aware it was farewell. Sophia had wept thereafter, and he'd embraced her, vowing alterations, aware even uttering they wouldn't materialize. You departed for the sweet pre-my awakening, she breathed. Even our concluding dawn, Hale Corporation preceded. I tested that afternoon. Dual rosy streaks altering all. Why conceal then? Because while fixating on those streaks, I realized. I didn't desire my progeny maturing as I did in our union, vying for paternal fragments, rivaling summons for his devotion. I desired they comprehend priority sensation, not obligation. Alexander inclined nearer, his grips clenched till digits blanched. Sophia, heed me, I implore. I acknowledge I disappointed you. I acknowledge I elected the firm over us repeatedly. But when they alerted this evening, when they stated you might perish, his timbre fractured. I comprehended I could forfeit every coin, observe my vast realm collapse, and it wouldn't signify. But forfeiting you, existing in a realm sans you, that would annihilate me utterly. Eloquent terms, she echoed prior utterance. You excelled there. Then permit proof. He elevated, striding to the pain. I've already alerted the council. Grant assumes leadership. I'll retain possession, but no directive oversight. No further 18-hour shifts. No further electing consolidations over kin repasts. No further. You can't merely reorganize your essence like a commercial buyout, Sophia interjected. Devotion isn't a strategy, Alexander. It's routine selections, minor instance, presence even absent urgency. I comprehend now. He pivoted to her and she discerned something unprecedented in his gaze. Utter capitulation. I expended 3 years erecting a realm and 36 hours observing you combat for vitality, which imparted more on priorities. Sophia's retort, a keen wail pierced the hush. Then another, more demanding. Luna, Sophia exhaled, parental drive surpassing all. Luna. Alexander's brows ascended. I selected monikers. Was that erroneous? She appeared Luna upon viewing. Abruptly hesitant, exposed. Is ideal, he uttered gently. What of our lad Orion? She breathed. Robust and dignified, like his parent might if electing. The wailing amplified, and despite their rift, Sophia commenced motion, endeavoring to exit the cot. Halt, no. Alexander was adjacent instantly. You endured substantial procedure. I'll inspect them. You lack knowledge? Then instruct me, he stated plainly. Instruct me all I've omitted. Permit me to master fatherhood they merit, spousal role you merited throughout. The initial week at Harmony Medical Center evolved into Alexander's tutorial on all he'd bypassed in existence. While Sophia mended from procedure, confined to repose and fleeting wheeled excursions to the nursery, Alexander virtually relocated to the facility. Mr. Hale, you truly ought to depart and cleanse, attendant Laura proposed on third dawn, discovering him dozing in the rigid folding seat by Sophia's cot at 6 a.m. His premium blouse creased irreparably and his typically flawless mane protruded oddly. I'm well, he muttered, instantly vigilant. How fare the progeny? Did Orion feed? Luna fussed near midnight. Sir, you're unwell. You resemble a collision victim. But Laura grinned. In 30 years tending, she'd witnessed nothing akin. In the respite area, nocturnal attendants convened for routine chatter. The tycoon's persisting, Laura murmured, agitating her brew. Fourth dawn. Identical garments, identical seat. Overheard he rejected 3 council sessions yesterday, Jennifer appended. Informed his aide his progeny nourishment timetable surpassed fiscal forecasts. Yesterday, I observed him discoursing to infant female like a commercial ally. Laura chuckled. He explicated why her sibling agitates upon her wail employing genuine bargaining methods. Luna, let's devise a mutual gain here. What they omitted was witnessing his evolution instantaneously. The individual who'd stormed their portals demanding resolutions had morphed entirely. Someone altering linens with unsteady grips while murmuring regrets for ineptitude. Someone crooning cradle songs so discordant other nursery progeny appeared to hush merely to heed in awe. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Alexander's timbre faltered through the nursery at 2 a.m., cradling Orion to his torso while Luna slumbered adjacent. How I ponder your nature. He paused, gazing at his son's gray visage. I ponder if you'll absolve me for omitting your initial 8 months. I ponder if you'll grant recompense for elapsed duration. From her wheeled seat in the portal, Sophia observed mutely. She'd informed the nocturnal attendant she required lavatory use, but truly drawn by his timbre. For 4 dawns she'd upheld barriers, shielding from optimism. But beholding him thus, exposed, tender, utterly centered on their progeny, gradually eroded her safeguards. Your father's scarce adept at melody, she uttered softly, wheeling nearer. Alexander jerked, nearly releasing Orion. I presumed you slumbered. Difficult slumbering amid your symphony-level diversion down the corridor. She aligned her wheeled seat by his. You're enhancing, though. Yesterday, utterly discordant. Tonight, merely predominantly discordant. For the first instance since the facility, he beamed. Truly beamed. Lofty acclaim from one who once performed melodiously. Cafe renditions scarcely qualify professional. But she beamed too. Her debut authentic since awakening. They sat in serene quiet, observing their progeny slumber. Luna's petite palm had located Orion's, digits entwined even dreaming. They recognize one another, Sophia murmured. Pre-knowing us, they knew each other. Perhaps that's their serenity source when united. They're not confronting the realm isolated. The note lingered, laden with import. Neither had confronted much jointly during union. They'd been dual souls pursuing parallel existences, occasionally converging for repasts or firm occasions. Alexander, Sophia stated ultimately, if we pursue this, and I affirm not we will, but if attempting anew, all must alter. Not merely your timetable, our discourse mode, our resolution manner, our kin prioritization. Enlighten me required. Alliance. Genuine alliance. Not you enacting grand acts anticipating my compliance. Not me issuing veiled barbs upon letdowns. We converse, we bargain, we yield. Like a consolidation. Precisely like a consolidation. Except this instance, none acquires. We evolve jointly into novel. Alexander adjusted Orion to one limb and extended for Sophia's palm. What would that manifest? Kin repast at 6 o'clock. Indisputable. Devices silenced, portables sealed. Sabbath dawns inviolable. No labor summons. No crises unless actual demise. When progeny age sufficiently, we undertake authentic getaways, not toil excursions where I'm trailed as adornment. Accomplished. What further? You avoid solitary resolutions on their prospects. No elite academies because hail tradition. No coercion into kin enterprise. They elect paths. Concord. Anything additional? Courting evenings weekly. Soleus. Even mere block ambles when they slumber. We must recall our initial enchantment pre-dissolution. Authentic devotion necessitates relinquishment. Disseminate this narrative if concurring genuine bonds demand electing one another daily, not merely conveniently. I can achieve that, Alexander uttered softly. But I require from you too. What? Forbearance. I'll err. I'll revert to leadership mode occasionally. I'm 33 and mastering paternity and authentic spousal duty initially. I need you to admonish upon slips. Not merely amass bitterness till unbearable. Sophia examined his countenance in the nursery's gentle glow. The individual cradling their lad resembled not the refined leader she'd wed. This variant raw, candid, utterly present. I can achieve that, she stated ultimately. But solely if vowing to heed when I do. I vow. As if intuiting the moment's gravity, both progeny roused concurrently. Petite timbers uniting in cadence evoking optimism. 2 weeks subsequent, the hale lofty abode underwent alteration astonishing any design periodical. Vanished sterile crystalline forms and formidable contemporary artworks. In their stead, plush coverings over hide furnishings, forming provisional alteration posts. The ceremonial feasting chamber now contained dual cradles aligned. Infant monitors and a heap of provisions seeming to proliferate daily. This space genuinely resembles a domicile, Sophia murmured, nestling into the swaying seat Alexander had sighted by the vast panes. Luna cuddled to her limb, finally serene post-hour agitation. Alexander elevated from cross-legged on the ornate mat, Orion on his lap, encircled by guides for progeny swings, harnesses, and a disconcerting array of contrivances he'd insisted essential. I engaged a squad to secure all, he stated, indicating drawer seals and edge pads. Evidently, progeny mobilize abruptly. They're 3 weeks, Alexander. They scarcely sustain skull elevation. I favor readiness. He displayed a guide titled Infant's Initial Strides. Knew some progeny stride by 9 months? That's 6 distant. Sophia chuckled. Her debut authentic chortle since pre-separation. You're tackling paternity like an aggressive buyout. Is that adverse? No, she uttered gently, observing him traverse their novel disarray with intensity once reserved for counsels. It's truly marvelous, merely divergent from anticipated. Their dawns had forged a cadence unlike any Alexander had known. Nourishment timetables governed his ledger over summons. He'd mastered 2-hour repose loops, differentiating Luna's famine wail from fatigue wail, altering linens with velocity of elite mechanics. 3 weeks post-home arrival, Alexander discovered Sophia on the balcony at dusk, urban glows commencing sparkle below. She leaned on the barrier, her form still yielding from gestation, her tresses ensnaring final aureate beams. How do you fare? He inquired, joining at the barrier. Exhausted, inundated, joyful. She paused, perplexed. On what? On this? On us? On whether we're erecting authentic or merely simulating domicile due to shared progeny. Alexander delved into his enclosure, digits encircling the petite velveteen case he'd borne for dawns, awaiting apt instant. I've pondered that too. He descended to one knee on the balcony, and Sophia's respiration hitched. Sophia, 3 years prior, I sought union with a 5-carat gem and discourse on consolidation merits. I discourse tax gains and merged holdings like corporate formation. Alexander, this instance I seek union with the woman electing devotion over opulence, nurturing our progeny isolated over partial focus. I seek to wed the parent crooning to our progeny while I mastered cradling. I seek to embody the spouse electing you each dawn, not merely convenient dawns. He unveiled the case, disclosing a plain circlet set with dual petite gems, one profound crimson, one vivid azure. Garnet for Luna, topaz for Orion. Their natal gems. This circlet isn't for flaunting riches or declarations. It's for bearing our progeny eternally, electing kin foremost, every resolution. Moisture cascaded Sophia's cheeks. Why presently? Why not delay till affirming functionality? Because I refuse another dawn unvowed eternally. Because each dawn since birth, I've observed you as unparalleled parent. And I desire expending remainder being worthy of you. He clasped her palm, timbre firm despite pounding core. Wed me anew, Sophia. Not the leader this instance, not the tycoon, merely Alexander. An individual finally grasping devotion isn't directed or refined. It's elected daily in every minor instant. Affirmative, she breathed, then amplified, sure. Affirmative, I'll wed you anew. As he slid the circlet onto her digit, a wail wafted inward. One progeny, then dual. Our signal, Sophia chortled through moisture. Ideal timing, Alexander concurred, elevating and drawing her near. Prepared to heed our progeny's summons jointly? Prepared, she stated. And for the debut since reunion, she truly signified. 6 months subsequent, the Hale kin had forged their cadence. The lofty abode hummed with structured disarray of twin novices mastering creep. Alexander's expansive suite lingered vacant most afternoons as he operated remotely, managing summons amid linen alterations and spontaneous sway gatherings in the parlor. Hale Corporation achieves unprecedented fiscal gains under fresh guidance. The headers Sophia displayed over dawn repast read. Fine for Grant, Alexander stated, gaze averted from attempting to nourish Luna, who'd cultivated firm views on pureed legumes. He's surpassing my tenure. Any laments? Solely one. He encountered her gaze across their disordered galley board, Orion gurgling contentedly in his elevated seat. that it necessitated nearly forfeiting all to comprehend wealth's essence. The essence of Alexander and Sophia's narrative distills to one irrefutable verity. Triumph sans devotion constitutes defeat. Regardless how grand your holdings seem, you can erect the grandest realm globally. But returning to vacant chambers and fractured bonds, you've forfeited the sole contest signifying. Permit me a query. What realm are you erecting while your domain crumbles? Are you fixated on ascending the rung oblivious whom you ascend for? How many milestones skipped for sessions? How many nocturnal tales omitted for summons? How many prospects permitted escape pursuing next elevation, next pact, next feat vowing worthiness of devotion already possessed? Alexander Hale mastered life's harshest precept. You can't repurchase duration. You can't bargain with lament. You can't consolidate into absolution. Devotion necessitates presence, not prestige. It requires your focus, not your drive. It demands your duration, not your riches. The paramount ventures aren't in equity exchanges or properties. They're in serene instance, in appearing, electing bond over expedience daily. If this narrative has stirred your soul, if it's prompted reflection on your priorities, follow this conduit for further narratives on renewals, authentic devotion, and life's essence. Disseminate with one needing this. Remark beneath and recount an instance electing devotion over drive or when you wished you had. That dusk, as Alexander sat in the nursery reciting Goodnight Moon for the 100th iteration, Luna elevated to him with her parents' emerald gaze and uttered her debut term. Papa. Orion, unwilling to lag, echoed his sibling. Papa. Alexander's gaze brimmed with moisture as he realized for the debut in existence, someone's debut term was his moniker. Not from riches or status, but because he was simply, utterly, joyously present. And that, he finally grasped, was the paramount triumph narrative of all. Recall, authentic opulence isn't accumulated, it's what you're willing to relinquish for devotion. Gratitude for viewing Ms. Aria Montgomery narratives. Until next.